Themes of oppression and resilience in Maya Angelou's Still I Rise poem. Introduction. The poem Still I Rise encourages self-acceptance and self-love in people. The well-known American poet Maya Angelou penned this poem in 1978. Angelou was motivated to create this poem by the inequity and oppression that define her existence. Despite the long-standing abolition of slavery in American culture, African Americans and other minorities still had to deal with discrimination. In this sense, Angelou portrays himself as an oppressed person. It represents people of color and the struggles they experience every day. Despite this, Angelou gives the oppressed people hope in the last stanza and encourages them to persevere so that they might get over the agony they are going through. She named her work Still I Rise to encourage underprivileged and prejudiced individuals that, with effort and dedication, they may improve their current circumstances. The poet explored the underlying issue of oppression and resilience, motivated by racial prejudice, using a range of literary strategies, including symbolism, imagery, repetition, and simile. The use of poetic techniques to develop the central theme. Descriptive language. Oppression and resiliency are the primary themes emphasized throughout the poem. Speaking and reflecting on the legacy of oppression, Angelou alludes to the struggles faced by Black people ever since that time in history. She speaks out vehemently against oppressors, predominantly white people. Words like slave, trampled, lie, and tides are used by the author to establish a logical appeal to the impacts of racism and prejudice, supporting the main subject. For instance, the term trod has an intriguing meaning, suggesting the isolation that exists between whites and blacks as a result of racial stereotypes and prejudice. The poetess discusses the difficulty brought on by tyranny and how to overcome it. She urges tenacity and rebelliousness of spirit rather than submission. By using metaphorical language, oppressed people are persuaded that, despite their race, their suffering will finally end, and they will be able to enjoy their rights and independence. Symbolism. The author also uses symbols to emphasize her oppression and resiliency message further. First, Angelou utilizes oil wells as a representation of money or prosperity. She describes how an oil well owner moves through his living room. Using this metaphor, the poet conveys that she is spiritually solid and wealthy rather than materially. Similarly, the owner of an oil well reportedly has enough money to live wherever he pleases. Her resolve, self-respect, and courage offer her strength and control over her life. She speaks about her elegance and pride, which may be seen as arrogance. The author chose this symbolism to uplift women, the significant targets of prejudice based on gender. She encourages them to embrace their beauty, grow in bravery and confidence, and take pride in their identity. The fact that Angelou has gold mines in her backyard is something she chuckles at because she is so self-assured and superior. Gold mines, like oil wells, suggest everlasting prosperity rather than material wealth. It illustrates how oppressed individuals must possess unwavering confidence and tenacity to achieve their aspirations in life despite the racial prejudice they encounter. Narrative. The author employs irony and a second-person narrative further to emphasize the central topic of oppression and resiliency. The poem's narrator, Maya Angelou, describes her struggles and experiences as a Black woman. She wants the audience to be able to picture the issue and become motivated to solve it. Additionally, the poet holds the ambiguous you accountable for her misfortunes by mocking and questioning it repeatedly throughout the poem. By employing a second-person narrative, the author hoped to inspire readers to consider their behavior and determine if it promotes discrimination. By imagining the victim's anguish, they might be motivated to alter their conduct. The poet also used irony to paint a specific image of how acts taken to weaken the readers might aid in their problem-solving in the reader's thoughts. For instance, the goal of the first stanza's attempt to trample the narrator into the ground was to keep her from achieving her goals. She was nevertheless motivated to face her worries by this deed. Sound devices. Additionally, the poetess uses repetition to convey her central point to the listener. She employs assonance, for instance, the recurrence of vowel sounds inside a single line. Assonance enhances rhythm and highlights essential ideas. Similarly, the author employs consonants by repeating consonant sounds across the poem's several lines. It is interesting how frequently the narrator says, "I get up" in the last verse. It draws attention to the pressing need to address the issue of prejudice to guarantee that everyone is respected and empowered, regardless of gender or cultural origin. Tone. The author expresses the central idea in a triumphal and indignant tone. The poem's narrator is enraged at the start because of the suffering her oppressors have caused her. She portrays herself as a strong black woman by the poem's conclusion, though, and is prepared to fight anybody who denies her the chance to achieve in life. To arouse the reader's emotions, the poet uses pathos. Pathos. Pathos is an essential persuasive technique that stimulates the senses to deliver the desired message. For instance, an indignant tone illustrates how immoral such behavior is by making readers feel pity for the narrator and other discriminating victims. A triumphal tone, on the other hand, elicits favorable feelings that inspire oppressed individuals to alter their circumstances, strengthening their fortitude, maintaining their optimism, and conquering their concerns. Conclusion. The encouraging poem Still I Rise uses various literary techniques to portray the underlying themes of oppression and resiliency. Discrimination still exists today despite the eradication of slavery in many spheres of life. For instance, racial stereotypes and biases affect African Americans and other minority groups, which hinders their ability to achieve in life. To assist readers in visualizing the anguish of the victims, Angelou often utilizes metaphorical language. She also makes mental pictures of the anguish brought on by discriminating by repetition. Notably, the repeated use of the slogan "I rise" inspires optimism in the oppressed that they can push through their worries and suffering while staying determined and proud of their sexual orientation and skin tone. The poet undoubtedly succeeded in enhancing his core issue of oppression and life in a period of expanding variety through the employment of literary methods. The poem is still relevant today and influences younger generations' attitudes.